Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to today's information session. Before we start, a reminder that this workshop is being recorded. However, while this workshop is open to the public, it is for staff to provide guidance to elected members. It is not a forum for debate or decisions. It is also not a forum for the public to provide input into decisions or bring other matters to the attention of council. If a member of the public does want to do that, please talk to staff and we'll help you have your say. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Right, there's a very brief process session here. Really looking at, I think you've seen this slide before. This is our progress to date and the sessions to date, but I just want to focus more on the remaining sessions for this year. Today we're setting out a lot of the financial levers. The 26th is really a roundup of any guidance or direction you want to provide for us. And then we come back on the 10th of December with a council report to say, look, we're just confirming what is it you want us to put in the draft annual plan. Because the window between middle of December and when you sign off the draft annual plan is actually relatively small when you take out the Christmas break. So really today and the 26th, a week from now, are about getting your guidance and whether or not our advice is right for you, and if not, what we need to do to get it right. And then on the 10th, the formal direction setting for the draft annual plan.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, councillors. Thanks, Peter. So this is a slide just where we finished at the a week ago when we had the session with council. We finished with a position of year one, 9.21%, 8.5 in year two, and 7.2 in year three. And so then moving on from the items that we had discussed at the 12th of November, the three items there, you can see them coming through, the plan changes, extra consultants, water and wastewater maintenance contract, and new stormwater assets coming through, brought us up to a 9.89 position at that time. So then we've got a number of other items to go through. So I guess we'll focus here on, I guess the bottom half of this slide was, we're talking about the options of, well, we discussed it in some detail, the idea of ratings growth, where that is. We think that at this point, with a 1% ratings growth, that's traditionally been 0.8, but we're going for a 1%. That may change between draft and final, or our advice may change between draft and final, but that's where we're projecting that or promoting that we sit. We've done some calculations with subvention credits and the option of using those or not, and how much there will be. These calculations, understand, are the technical calculations, but there's not a high level of certainty and that they can change. We're talking a year out where the trading position or taxable position on the group of companies in the tax group, so that's the CCL subs and VO are in there, where that will be. So we've got some indications of where that will be. So at this stage we're promoting that we can use $6 million of that for the year in question, 25-26, and that's a reduction in rates. Also, we're looking at the operating surplus for the current year. So we're currently sitting around just over $11 million where we are. A large chunk of that is the insurance premium reduction that we have, but there's other items in there too. So we'll know more closer what that will be at post the February report, after we get through the January, December, whether there's a lot of staff leave and the capitalisation, how all that works. But we're confident that will be around that mark or better. So we're proposing to use $6 million of that to reduce borrowings. I'm happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, sorry. Did you have one? No, we might as well get rid of them there as we go. Sam, did you have one?
Yeah.
And then, did I see Yanni?
So in December there'll be a question there'll be a resolution around balanced budget, will there? Because obviously we had the LTP, which was the rating for renewals, effectively stuff, where we made a decision. So that's just got quite a big rating impact for next year. So I'd be keen to have a council decision on that at the right time. The other one is subvention credits. So are we saying that's the only access to subvention credits that are left?
A bit of history through you, Mr. Mayor. So we used subvention credits significantly over the last 2-3 years because there was a build-up of losses sitting in CCHL. So we've drawn down on those now. So now we're looking going forward where that's likely to be. And at this stage, over the next 3 years, there's an element of our losses that we'll be able to use to offset. So we'll be able to gain that. And so that's what we're looking at. So that's why the level of certainty is less at this point as to how much that could be. There's a small amount possibly for the current year that could be available, but it's within the margin. So we're not sort of promoting that. But going forward, at this stage, we would be recommending using $6 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what's in this year that we could potentially attribute to it?
Sorry?
What was in this year? You referred to some being around the margins in this year.
Oh, look, we've already got, I think, $12 million sitting in the budget for the current year.
Yep.
We could be about 1 or 2 ahead of that. But getting the taxable position through from the subs, that won't be confirmed until the end of February. We're working with them now, naturally. So that's how we can say that, but that wouldn't be confirmed until the end of February.
The challenge we've got, and I kind of get where you're coming from, is that we struck a rate in the LTP. What we've proposed, if we skip through, is significantly higher than that, and even 8.5% on inflation of 3% is massive for people at the moment.
Yep.
So I guess what I'm just saying is, if there is stuff on the margins, I want to test the council's appetite for that in December around accepting the stuff on the margins to help drive that number down. So if we could just factor that in, that would be really cool.
Okay.
And the other one is around the operating surplus. So when I made that request, I was of the impression it would be to offset expenses as opposed to reduce borrowing.
Okay, so
which has that again has a massive impact on what we're rating people. So maybe I didn't explain it well at the last F&P, but it was around that idea of, if we know we've got additional costs coming in for next year, for the next financial year, what can we tag from the surplus this year to offset those costs, as opposed to the debt reduction? So I know there's a choice, and I'm not saying, I know where I stand on it, but people may have a differing view. But I just like that as an option in December as well, because that will obviously have an impact. Again, I'm just going back to, this is significantly higher than the rate of inflation for people.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree. I can understand what you're saying. The caveat I would say, and we'll come back with those options, 10th of December, we'll put that in the paper.
Yep.
That would make sense. The concern is, or the impact is, the following year, if we use one-offs, it's sort of like, it's a one-off. So then the following year, we've got to bridge that gap. So it's going to be a gap in it higher than what we need.
And we do that.
So we can show what will be in the future years, should that be the...
Yeah. No, that would be good. We do that dance every year.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So I'm just conscious of, again, that it's significantly higher than inflation, or anywhere near it. So we do need to I just want to keep. So I'll probably be a pain the whole way through, because I want to keep testing that we are pushing stuff to the edges where we can.
No, certainly through you, Mr. Mayor, you're not a pain, and
you're the first one to say that.
Okay.
No.
And in public.
Okay, thank you, Yanni.
So, but that's a conversation we are having across the team as well. What is the best way to keep the rates down? What are the options to safeguard council? It's quite a dilemma. So this is what we've come, but we'll come back with options. Yep.
Cool. I was just mindful that I'm just trying to understand about the operating surplus. We've got units like the plan changes, for example, where we're told we need additional resource, and so we can't do anything until we get, I think, an annual plan bid for more resource. But we've got an operating surplus that we could apply to doing the things that we said we were going to do that we still haven't done. So can you just help me understand why we don't use the operating surplus to put towards the things that we're falling behind or getting delayed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the focus that we put on the budget managers and the organisation is to stay within budget. So that's both an FTE budget and an expenditure budget, both capital and operating. And so if there is additional requests needed, that would, that's another line that we would have to
Sorry,
take.
I'm talking about formal council resolutions to do work that
Yes.
still hasn't been done. That goes back to 5 or 6 years ago.
Right. Okay, I can't answer that, sorry, Councillor.
So we've got a, how can I put it? We've got a staff, not a shortage, we've got people that aren't employed in certain units. We've got vacancies, right? And some of that's led to the surplus. We've got staff now coming and telling us, which I've raised just about every annual plan since the request around the plan change, what resources do we need to get it done? Oh, it's a capacity issue. Now we're told it's a resource issue. We've got resource available, but we're not using it to do the things that we've agreed to do. I'm struggling to get my head around that.
Is this about the district plan?
Yes.
Yes, last week you had a presentation about that and you agreed to add 4 extra roles into that. So that's been covered and resolved.
Sorry, what the question that I've got is, why aren't we just doing that now, given that, why do we need to wait to the annual plan to do that? Why can we not do that now out of the operating surplus?
Because there are vacancies in a different area,
Vacancies in a different area, yeah.
which may be being recruited for in that area or required in the longer term in that area. So that you could explain the vacancies, but the vacancies aren't even across the year. They go up and down as there's a vacancy here while it's recruited, or a vacancy here. It's not one role that's vacant throughout the year. So you can't recruit for somebody to do district planning or 4 people to do district planning for 3 years, because our vacancies are going up and down across different units all the time.
Sure, but if we don't want to wait another 6 months to approve that additional resource, then is there an option to take some of that out of the operating surplus?
Do you want to?
Oh,
answer
through
that?
you, Your Worship. I think, well, activities have budgets, and so some of the surplus might arise. And if you see, for instance, it's arisen because of the saving in insurance, and so that's across the organisation. Other times, the demand is in an area, and we can't, without council approval, just go and move funds between activities, particularly where they're funded from different sources, such as some are funded from rates, some are funded from fees and charges or whatever. So it's not, we don't really like to just move money around. And as Russell said, it's about people having to sit within the budget that they're given for their activity.
So is there because we do it with capital, we do it all the time. We take funding from other projects to make up the shortfalls. Is there a change process around operational funding that we have as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there is, but it's within the activity, not across activities. Yeah.
Right. Is there a way that we could maybe look at that? Because that would seem a sensible thing, like we do with a lot of the other projects. They get funded from all sorts of other activities, not just within their program.
Again, it's through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess just to capture what Bede was saying, will depend on the funding of that. Like, it's not all rates, sometimes it's fees and charges for a specific thing. So if there is surplus, well, there wouldn't be, but if we are putting extra expenditure in that area and it can only be funded by fees and charges, then we need to look. So what I'm saying, there's a mix of things in that discussion. But your point is made, and we can have a look.
Kind of similar to what Sam has raised, but almost the exact opposite. I wondered why you're proposing, obviously, to use subvention credits for a rates offset, but operating surplus for debt reduction, and they seem like a trade-off against one another, maybe an internal compromise. But I think it would be good to have, if we're going to have the options of taking subvention and operating, it would be good to have the options of full subventions and borrowing, and full subvention and full operating on borrowing reduction as well. And if we could get that rates track over the next few years, just so that we have all the levers both ways, not just all the levers one way.
Understand, councillor, and you're quite right. It is important to look over the longer term rather than the shorter term. Yeah.
Thank you.
This 6 million you're talking about there, that's the additional on top of the other subventions, so you're not talking about the whole lot.
That's correct.
Yep.
That this is additional funding we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got slightly lost in Jake's questions, so mine might be the same one and you might have answered, but can I just check for my own clarity, please? It arose as a supplementary to Sam when he talked about using the 6 million to offset, that reduce the borrowing, yeah. And you've given us the rates impact. Will you give us the rates impact, please, if we use that 6 million to offset increased operating costs, and is it different?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we will do that for both. We'll look at, okay, if we used one or both for offsetting rates, or one or both for
Do you know what that
offsetting
looks
debt.
like? Do you know what that looks like yet?
Well, 6%, it's 0.78% of rates.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, $6 million is 0.78% of rates, yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
In a funny way though, using it to reduce operational is actually also reducing the rate, because we normally rate for the OPEX. It's a roundabout way of using it for rate reduction rather than debt, isn't it?
We've also, I mean, we're going to have to consult on the balanced budget, I would have thought, given we went out last time and said we were comfortable deferring it, and then we're saying now we're going to bring in that cost. You know, it's just that whole challenge, isn't it, of we're at 9% in an inflation environment of 3.5%.
Yeah, through you.
Well, that's even scarier, isn't it? You look at the 10-year trajectory and it's even worse. Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship, we can bring back a range of options and we'll aim to present it in a reasonably straightforward way. If you use the money to reduce the rate or the expenditure, this is the effect. If you use it to repay debt, this is the effect. And because the debt has a much lower rate impact, it reduces by a much lower level the rates, but we can show that.
Aaron, then Pauline.
Yeah, so mine's a bit of a follow-on from Sam's, and at where we're at, just shy of 10%, and inflation's at 2.2, and there's been a clear direction from the Minister that unacceptably high rate rises are unacceptable, and they will drive inflation. It'll push inflation again in the middle of next year when every council in the country has these 400% higher than inflation rate rises. Can we get options coming that actually makes us do the hard work this year to reduce our rates down to a lower number, or is that just not possible? Otherwise, why are we here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what options are you considering, councillor?
I would consider every single option you'd put in front of me to reduce the rates down to half of where we're currently looking. Like, we can have some tough conversations and they might not get across the line, but at least for the optics of the public, they should be looking at us going, look, they've looked at everything, they can't do anything, or yes, they can, but they chose not to, or
The only
yes, they
thing
did,
missing
and they
on
reduced it.
here is levels of service.
Yep, happy to look at them. Happy to look at literally everything, because this is just, people are going to be really unhappy again, and we're going to drive inflation.
Through you, Your Worship, Councillor, we just need to be mindful if we're about levels of service. The caveat is if we propose significant changes to levels of service, then that is an amendment to the LTP.
Yep.
And that then reintroduces a rerun of the LTP, including an audit. And our understanding is that we were
So how do we
changes
explain
and
to the public that
variations.
how do we explain to the public that we can't or don't want to do that? Because they would say, well, why don't you just do that? That's what little old ladies struggling to pay, and there's a few men, but ladies live longer, so they've got to pay it longer, looking at their rates bill going, how am I going to afford this? Why did the council not look at every single lever they had to save me money?
Through you, Your Worship, what we were showing earlier on in terms of the savings and the way staff costs have run and so on is that we do look at every lever, and we continue to look at every single lever. The LTP, the consultation did also reflect that levels of service, there was a desire in the community to maintain those. So there are.
Sorry, not in my community. I've not had that feedback from anyone to maintain
we're,
the current
we're
as a
sort of
service.
running out of runway now, though,
Yes,
too, aren't we?
we
and
are,
that we've
we
gone
are.
away round for the last 6 months with your direction that you didn't want a LTP, amended
we don't want to go there.
LTP, and so we're here now. So potentially all we can go back and look at is the decisions that you've made in this process that weren't affecting the LTP, because we're probably out of runway now to do a whole review of our LTP. But it would certainly be something you'd potentially may want to do next year, where you might want to go into it early and say we're going for an amended LTP for next annual plan.
Okay.
Right, Pauline.
Yeah, just the inflation number. What are we working with? Because we work with the Burl, don't we?
We do.
And what rate is that at the moment? Because I know they suggested that we increase it, haven't they?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if you recall last week we discussed that Burl had initially said that in the it was up about 1.1%.
Additional.
In addition to
Which
what we
makes it
initially
what?
had. Yep.
What-
And so that was the initial figures, the figures that they gave, and then they came back and gave us an update on what that was, and we've just got that probably just before the presentation last week.
Yep.
And so that saw a reduction coming back. But we're still up a little.
So-
We've asked them why that is.
Yeah.
There's our webinar in about 10 days' time, which we're logging in, but we haven't.
Yeah, but what's the
rather than
number?
wait,
What's the number that we've got now? What
The number
percentage are we building in for inflation now, including the Burl latest
So the people behind me are telling me it's 3.4%.
3.4?
Yep.
So I just wanted to clarify that with Councillor Kewen, that we're not using 2.2. We have a different measure dictated by Burl. And the other thing is that we can say inflation, but we also, our other inflationary costs are, which have inflated, interest rates and insurance. So if we could find a number, please, which rolls those into one percentage would be really good, because those are fixed costs that we can't control,
Move
and the
on.
public needs to know those. So if we could say the insurance is costing this percent and inflation is extra percent, add that, insurance is extra, add that all together with inflation and come out with that base number that we can't control.
So
Is
I
that
wonder whether
possible?
it's worth going on, because we're getting to slides around insurance and
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
So if we move on with the next slides.
We've got
and then we
one
can-
more question, and
Yeah,
that's
but my
Sarah.
question is, can we get those numbers rolled into one percentage impact on our rates?
Like last year, the
That's
fixed
what I want,
cost.
to add them together so that we're talking, that's a lump fixed cost, which could be somewhere around 5%, I don't know. 6 could be,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll have a look at what
Thank
numbers
you.
we can put together.
that'd be helpful.
Going down.
Thank you, Sarah, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
Thanks. It's been covered, so it's fine.
You're good?
Okay.
Thank you. Right, carry on, gents.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. So this is a recap. The next few slides are recaps of the conversations and discussions and presentations that have been before you. Just on we'll go through every line item there, because like I say, it's just a recap on things that we've had. But look, I'm happy to take any questions on any of them. You see that at the top line, there's been a reduction in the insurance premium because we had budgeted to be a higher amount. With the work that the team had done with the brokers in London, that we've been able to reduce that. The wastewater treatment plant, the funding that we've received from that has enabled us to borrow less, so that's seen a reduction interest rate. The fourth item down, you see the Burl inflation data update, so that's seen a reduction from the initial numbers that we told you. And staff capitalisation, there's been that's gone the other way because we weren't capitalising as much of the staff activities. Looking at best practice and advice on audit, what that would be, that's shown what that is. So like I said, I'm not going to go through every item, happy to, but we'll be here for quite some time. I've got a number of these slides to go through, but happy to take any questions.
Right, here we go. So we've got Sam and then Aaron.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Russell. Just two things. So when we get and I'm not so much worried about next week with the, the update. It's more the paper that comes in December for us to make some decisions. For things like rating for growth, are we able to just get comparators so we can understand what we rated for, like what the percentage was last year, what it is this year, and what's the life to date? Because I know we often try and deal with that in June. It would just be good to understand how that looks. And the other one was just around the capex number, so that staff capitalisation reduction. And can you just correct me if I'm wrong? So effectively, what you're saying there is we were over capitalising staff costs.
That's correct. The methodology we've been used has been reviewed, and
Yep.
so we've now turned that back over.
Okay.
It's largely in IT.
Was it IT? Okay. Yeah, because I think I remember coming through audit and risk, we talked a wee bit about. I think the auditors have flagged that sort of more regular review of capital costs in terms of staffing, so that we're picking them up as we go. So there's nothing else we're likely going to be worried about.
We were looking at it, and like you said, having conversation with audit on best practice, the types of things that we were looking at capitalising, and discussions with the various units that are in that space. So yeah, we're not expecting, but we're continuing to look. Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure, and I'll have to go back and look at the paper, but there was definitely one that came to audit and risk, and it was from the auditors around us doing a regular review of what we're capitalising into capital projects. Because remember we had that adjustment at the end of last year, which then obviously reduced it as well.
That's right.
So can we just get some advice on that? It doesn't have to be for the 4th of December, but for the new year around, I just want to be really comfortable that we've landed on a number that that is sort of accurate. And again, it's only because the auditors have flagged it with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Aaron.
Just on the wastewater treatment plant, because we moved to the activated sludge, and that has the huge environmental impact of reducing carbon emissions so much, or greenhouse emissions. Is there a fund we can get any extra costs for that project from? Because the government throws hundreds of millions every year, billions, at reducing emissions. So is there a fund that any extra costs in that project can be clawed back, just because it may save us some money in the coming year or two? Is that possible?
We can look into it. We'll look.
It is the biggest environmental impact this council will ever make.
Yeah.
Literally.
We're chopping it. Yep. Okay.
So, and then the other one is the landfill aftercare projects. Rather than that going onto rates, can that not go onto some of the waste levies? Shouldn't it be coming from there? I realise it's for that's the old landfills, isn't it?
Yes.
But can that either go on the 3 bin charge or on the waste, the rubbish dumping fee? Like that, just we collect it that way, so rubbish paying for rubbish? Can that be done?
For you, Mr. Mayor, that's a good question. We'll come back with that. Yep.
Okay, and Vic?
Thank you. Can I check in, please, on the pay equity and the settlement adjustments? Can you remind me what that timeline is looking like? And in the event that we don't settle and it has to go to arbitration, the timeline might push out. So does that have to be in the 25-26 year? Is there any chance that it could be pushed out further if we don't settle?
So we've had to effectively agree to a mandate to go into bargaining. Bargaining started 1 minute ago. We need to be ready for settlement. Now, the next step could be mediation. It could be a referral to ERA. So the timeline is a bit unknown. Irrespective, we might need to be ready to back pay, and back pay would be dated backwards, obviously, to typically until there is agreement that there is a legitimate pay equity issue to settle.
Okay. You're all good? Righto. Carry on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, like I say, these slides now are just other changes that we're putting through that we can discuss with council in detail. So this is a summary of those going through, which we have modelled. Sorry?
Do you want to talk to any specific?
I don't know.
Any questions on this one?
So, yes, sorry, just go back.
Yeah.
Those community drinking water stations things, that's just the 2 of them, is it?
Yes.
That we've got?
Yes.
Okay. Right, yeah.
And the ECAN one, that's for the stormwater discharge consent, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah, so what's the additional cost for? Do you know?
I'll have to get the team to bring back the detail on it, but it is just the extra costs of complying with that consent that Three Waters can bring that back.
Maybe in one of, yeah, okay, thanks.
2 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
$200,000. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just talk me through the noise control contract? Like, what's happening there? Like, I mean, we've I think my recollection from the finance reporting, level service reporting, is we've consistently failed to meet the targets around noise control. Are we using the existing operator, or are we looking to change? Or
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's been a jump in the contract price, but there's probably someone in the back room tell me.
And that's trying to meet the level of service and
Yes.
cater for the increased demand for that service.
Yes.
There's more complaints.
have we looked at switching providers given the performance? Like, is there a section 17A that we've done around that before we add extra
We
cost?
wouldn't do a 17A review, we just do a contract review. I can't remember, I think there was, but we can follow up.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Thanks.
But broadly, it was the extra funding was in order to address the levels of service, but I would have to follow up, as the chief executive said. But that's why the extra amount is there, is to address to meet the levels of service that we weren't meeting.
Yeah.
Marcus?
My question was around those community drinking water stations. Can we get some advice at some stage on extra costs per putting in extra stations?
No, I can't put rates up anymore.
There's through you, Mr. Mayor, there's still a report due back from Three Waters on potential other sites and the cost of doing so, but it won't be for this annual plan.
And it is, we've talked, it's very important to have them in a place where people can just whip off the road, fill water up and without causing mayhem on the traffic. Okay, thank you. Carry on, please.
Okay, thank you. So the last slide in the OPEX space is those items that were discussed last week on the 12th, which I just covered briefly earlier. Cool. The next series of slides is in the CapEx space, and each of the units have got a slide in each. So, well, some have got more than one, but we'll go through those. So the first one is parks. And effectively saying that, there's been minimal impact for the budget year overall.
So through you, Your Wish, what we're proposing is to bring into the report retaining as it is per the LTP. And the next one, we can do it within the existing envelope. Are there any questions on these? No. That's a bit of a hard one to read.
Yeah, it's a bit condensed. Apologies for that. This is Three Waters. In addition, it's mostly a rephasing space. So you can see there's minimal impact. In fact, it's nil for year one and up a little in year two and a wee bit more in the outer years. Sorry about the smallness of print.
No, that's right. Just to put people in the picture, as far as I went to the wastewater treatment plant the other day and had a little bit of a wander around on where the activated sludge is going to be fitted, and there is a lot of, just because we're putting I'll say the Rolls Royce with the new activated sludge plant in, there's a lot of other stuff just down that adds on to that needs to be upgraded to make the activated sludge work as well as it can do. So it's not just put that in and walk away from it. There's downstream effects. It needs a little bit more capacity, or a bigger pump, or a longer pipe, or all sorts of different stuff that they're working on as well. So that's what some of that stuff is. So.
I think there was also sufficient money in the LTP for that work.
Yep, there was. Yeah, but there is. Don't think for a minute that's just put the little box in that does activated sludge. It's a big box, but there's other stuff down the stream that needs a tidy up on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Gavin, anything you wanted to add to these?
No, nothing to add.
Cool, thanks. Yep.
Just on the Three Waters, the Chelsea Street pump station renewal, are you working in with the street renewal at the same time?
I'd have to go back and get to talk with staff and come back to you.
Okay, and also, whereabouts is that pump station? Is it near the Eastgate, or is it further down? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you. I'd have to find out.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thank you. So in the transport space, top line is carry over action. Top line, $5 million budget, and the others have either been not recommended or deferring to a following year.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, just in terms of that first one, so I thought it was to implement the Bromley action plan, and I've sent the memo around, but the scope of the plan is not just safety. It was focused like more of a healthy streets type approach. So just wondering if, you've got safety measures there, but actually the plan is broader than safety measures.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm sorry, I haven't got anyone from transport in this. Brent knows. I guess we're just trying to fit as few words as possible in the little box, so it could be wider than we're describing there. But,
cool. Thanks.
So sorry, but
no,
we'll come back with you with a wider definition. Yep.
Yeah. Do you want me to send you the memo again, or with the project outcomes, or?
We'll do it. Thank you. Thanks. Carry on, gents.
Cool. Still in the transport space. Again, nothing in year one. An increase, proposed year increase in year two, and that's the Wheels to Wings project. Cool. Thanks.
You got Mel and then Vic.
So I just want to check that when this comes to us, we'll have decisions around options for these ones where staff have recommended deferring, etc.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, what this schedule is doing is saying, okay, these are what staff is recommending now. Accept the change or not recommend the change. So that's what we're asking now. So, so this particular slide was saying not recommended for 1, 2, and 3. Include option 7 for Wheels to Wings. Include and proceed with the business case for Pages Road Bridge, and defer the Lincoln Road
So
project.
You're particularly asking when it comes to Wheels to Wings, there'd be more than option 7 that you can while the staff may be recommending option 7, there'll be alternative. Was that your question?
Not just Wheels to Wings, but some of the ones that are not recommended, for instance, so they just won't appear when we come to make the decision.
There'll be options in the report, so it'll be an include or a not include.
Right.
For example,
So the
Simeon
recommendation is
Street,
this,
you need to put more money on, and if you did want to put more money on, we'd have the options and the information about if your decision was to do it, this is what you would need, and this would be the rates impact.
Thanks.
All right. Pauline, sorry.
Just on Wheels to Wings, like I don't know where the staff recommendation has come from, because to me I didn't hear that guidance. There's been no clear majority for any of the options.
I think this is going to be this is a staff recommendation.
Yeah,
this is not taken from necessary from guidance.
But normally it comes from guidance.
Some of it does,
previous.
but some of it doesn't.
So I just think it's a little bit.
I mean, we've had no input into the
No, we had those 7 options presented and discussions about it, and I felt we know that it's a divisive issue, so I think that for staff to come with a recommended option kind of gives it an edge in a way. But providing they are bringing other options, that's
Staff
okay.
have an obligation to come with advice and recommendations. It's
yeah.
But there will be other options.
Okay, well, providing there are other ones there as well. Yeah.
All of them will be in there. All of the 7 options will be in the report to consider.
Thank you, Lynette. Victoria?
Can I just check then on that wheels to wings? My understanding was that it was already in the long-term plan budget and it was forecast to be spent. So why are we showing it as a plus 6.8 in FY27 if it was already in the budget and forecast spend?
Escalation, is it?
I don't know. Sorry, I don't know why there's a plus 6.8. I will we'll go away and have a look at that. Because yes, there is budget in there. It may have been that it's been looked at against just section 1 and not looked at the other 2 sections because there is budget there. So there shouldn't be additional budget.
So we'll come back with
Okay.
that, yeah.
Yes, we will do that. Carry on. Go.
So look, back to what we're presenting here is, as the CEO said, we feel we should bring advice and a position for it to be tested. And what we're presenting here is how this advice, whether you want to give some testing of that now so that it informs our report when we bring it to council. And we've noted those questions and we'll follow up on them.
So the position that we're currently in, assuming it's the staff advice is the accepted option taken, and understanding that's not necessarily going to be, but if it is, then this is the position that we're currently sitting in today, with 9.06 rates in year 1, 9.3 in year 2, and 7.2 in year 3. Yeah.
Are there any further questions on the what we've presented here is essentially a summary of what has come up over the prior workshops?
Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. I just want a bit of clarification. So first, I really admire probably need to go back a slide. I really admire the detail of the work to make savings. I guess I'm trying to understand, because we're doing an awful lot of micro looking at the entire organisation, trying to save money at every level. If we were to do something macro, like sell large tracts of land or whatever, and actually raise a significant amount of money to mitigate rates, would that trigger an LTP?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would depend on, I guess, what it was that we're looking to sell, how that land was, or if it's a classified asset, then which we'd need to consult on that. Okay. It depends on the level of change that we'd propose, that we're putting to, that we hadn't.
So yeah, under the current situation that we're looking at, I mean, we increased rates nearly 10% last year, and we're looking at 9 next year, 9.3 the year after, 7.2 sort of thing. I mean, I've been in business for 30 years, and I've never worked for an organisation that increases the costs of the charges to its customers by such an outrageous amount, and I just can't understand why we're not looking at absolutely every way of reducing that in some way. I just can't get my head around it. I really can't. Sorry, it's more of a statement, but yeah.
Okay, any other questions? carry on, please.
Okay, just please go forward. Look, this is just one example. There's been quite a few questions from councillors. About 90% of them have been responded to. This is very typical of the kinds of questions and responses that we've been receiving. The tool remains open. If you have other questions you want to pose, particularly as a result of today's briefing, please do access the Q&A tool for councillors. It's the best way for you to get a response on what you're looking for. There's some detail there. We're mostly knocking these over fairly quickly. If they're particularly complex or there's a variety of options, it can take a little bit longer, or if we weren't quite clear on what the question actually meant, we have to go back and ask for further detail. But generally speaking, we're knocking these over pretty quickly, and we intend to do that right through to the creation of the draft. So it's just a little quick reminder about how the process works. Please don't, if it's about the annual plan, please don't email directly to an officer or a staff member. Place it through the Q&A tool. That way we can manage the process, keep issuing reminders and stay on top of it.
Okay, so at the end, more? No more? Next steps.
Okay, look, I've covered this, but we have a further roundup next Tuesday, and then the report meeting, which is a formal council meeting of the 10th, where those options we'll be looking for a steer on which way to go. That will enable us to ask staff to plan for building your draft annual plan ready for early February. They have holidays as well, so there's timing issues there around the break. So in other words, if we know from experience, if we can finish mid-December with a clear steer, broad consensus, we can go and build a draft annual plan for you. From there, if all goes to plan, we adopt in mid-February, go to consultation in March, and the rest of the logistics you're pretty familiar with because they're more or less dictated by timeframes. Hearings in May, the first half of May, and then a series of briefings to decide on what the content of the final annual plan will be. So that takes into account the submissions and the contents of the hearings, the feedback we've got from the community. And of course, we aim to adopt in June in order to strike the rates. Are there any questions on any of those logistics?
Aaron?
I'll ask the dumb question for the day because no one's done one yet. Is what would happen if Mary went to every department and said, what does saving 10% look like? If you had to do it this year, like say we were frozen, what would it look like?
There would be levels of service cuts.
Right.
We wouldn't deliver our levels of service, and the regulatory areas wouldn't be able to meet their regulatory requirements.
So the levels of service can be cut, the reg requirements have to be met. So
Yes,
that's
but
what I mean by...
most of them, a lot of them are fee for service anyway, so you wouldn't do a 10% cut there because they're actually revenue to offset the cost.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Just mindful that our council companies are also doing a lot of work on looking at the future. At what point are we going to get an understanding of what levers they're looking at? Like my understanding is there's been discussions around leasing out operations or...
Which companies are you talking about? Sorry,
well, the port,
CCHL.
the port, for example, the DP World.
We haven't heard anything about that.
No, they're us.
Right.
CCHL.
Yeah.
Neither. Press. Yeah.
But we can follow up.
Right, can I just add in there though, council was really clear to CCHL not to do that kind of work, and CCHL has confirmed to council that CCHL is not doing that work.
Yeah, thanks.
But our individual companies will be looking at different levers. I mean, put aside the port, but is there, at a high level, the work that the council companies are doing outside of the ones we've talked about, Venues and Christchurch and Z, is there going to be kind of a an updated report back around where they've got to in terms of financial position and what they're looking at? In terms
The CCHL, of course it will. That's what.
So when does that fit into this process?
No, they've told us how much dividend they're giving us, and they will stick to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So we've factored that in on how much that they're getting. If they make any more
Sorry,
money, they'll just use it to pay off debt.
And pay off debt. Yeah, that's the decision. Pay off debt or invest in their own infrastructure.
Right. Okay. But between now and when we go out to consultation, things could change, or are we pretty?
No, they've said we're going to pay you X number of dollars of dividend, and from what I'm told, that's happening. There's no reason to say it's not.
And if they make efficiencies, the commitment we made to them is we want that invested back in paying off debt or paying
For them.
paying infrastructure investment.
So just to be really clear, there's nothing likely to come from CCHL between now and when we adopt the final annual plan, that will materially change our rates position.
Nothing more than they've already said that you've already locked in.
Okay.
Is that right, guys?
That's correct. It's through the statement of intent.
Yep.
They tell us the dividend, and that's set for this year.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you very much. Right. Good-io.
So,
Are you anything else you want to?
no, next week we'll be back.
Yep.
Sort of with a wrap.
Yes.
To see if when you go through it, to what additional information you'd like to give us or
Yes.
advice you can give us to inform the report, and we'll have answers to the questions you presented.
But
today.
we will do another review of our costs, but that don't impact on levels of service, to see if we can get the rate back to the LTP level.
Can you actually, when we talk about if you make too many changes that triggers an LTP, is any level of service change is one of those triggers?
No, not necessarily.
There must be a line to say, whoa, you can't push it any further than this, and I don't know if we're close to that line.
Significant levels of service in significant activities. So if you're talking about a service, pick an obvious example, that rubbish gets picked up regularly. If you said, well, it'll only get picked up half as often, that's a significant level of service and a significant activity. So that's a very quick, off the hip kind of view.
We have to also be careful of the things that actually result in staff losses, because we wouldn't get the return in the first year, because we would, if we were cutting staff, we'd have to pay redundancy in the first year, and so we wouldn't get any benefit from the first year. We'd get a reduced level of service and be paying redundancy, so it wouldn't help our annual plan year.
Yep. Okay. Aaron?
There's lots of other places. Some are around non-essential maintenance, and I'm pretty sure our library's just reopened today. Our service centre and library in Fendleton could have been left 2 or 3 more years, wouldn't it? No, I mean, you wouldn't have known. Yes, it'll look great and it'll be nicer, but is that necessary when rates are at 10%? I would say 99% of Christchurch would say no. There's no holes in the carpet. The paint wasn't peeling off the walls. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that the public go, my rate's going up so much, so why are you still doing that work? And other ones around, we spend more than $1 million a year cleaning up tagging. Can we start taking some prosecutions on that? Oh, quite a few get caught, about 35 a year on average.
I think the police do the prosecutions, not us.
But let's start clawing some of that back. They could pay reparations of $4 a week.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We'll see you very soon.